Because I really only work with fuming and very seldom use colors, I do have some dark glasses in the shop. Like if I was going to do something with some blue or some charcoal tubing or something, I'll wear my darker glasses. But don't really need them. I got a little electric torch lighter. It's safer than a Bic lighter, but I'll use a Bic lighter too. But if you use a Bic lighter, you light it and then you have it underneath, and the chance of getting a lighter to blow up in your hand then is kind of real hard. And you introduce it, you tuck it in, and you bring it right on down to the point of the blue cone. I like the single orifice tip because I get a sharp location. I don't have points all around. And we can make this fly like a bird. And what's going to happen is it's going to just come apart. And there's no burnt air bubbles on the end there, like when you fire cut a rod apart. I like to stand everything on end, and now the heat's rising. If I lay this down flat on the bench, it's going to chill from the bottom up. You're going to have gradients of stress going that way. I stand this up and it's got gradients of stress going around it, like when you introduce it into the flame, you're getting stresses that aren't going to pull apart so much as ones if I laid that down. Now, I used to start out and do a little sort of simple animal sculpture thing, because that's where you were going to go next after you make your color, was you were going to just start off and start to get your mixing color. And if you happen to see some figure, oh, that looked like a horse's butt, well, maybe I can put a leg on here, or some other thing. So as a beginner, you start out, you're just mixing your silver and your glass, and why don't we do that? Find that little metal cup, there it is. Going to just get a tiny amount of silver on there, fume some of it onto itself, and just keep floating that around. This is going to give me like a whole lot of little microscopic lines running through the glass, or not quite microscopic, but very small and fine. And the more you blend it, the more you work it in, the more homogeneous it becomes. The color and the clear start to separate. You'll be able to tell what becomes the dominant colors part. And then anyhow, not going to mix more color than that because I've got a much easier way than doing that. Back in the day when Steve had to mix pounds of silver, he was doing it pretty much from filings. But what I want to do is not leave a collar here, not leave an acute angle there. I want everything to flow into each other. I want smooth, I don't want sharp angles. An acute angle is where stress is built. There's an air bubble in here that's shaped like a crescent. If I don't round that air bubble up, it's going to have more stress, but its stress comes in time. It's like as the barometric pressure goes up and down, the stress inside the glass where you've got air bubbles or streak of air caught in a lip of the glass, well, as the barometric pressure goes up and down all the time, if that thing's a wedge-shaped bubble, that wedge is always kind of doing that. If it's round, it's pushing out more evenly. So I try to round up bubbles. Okay, if I want to turn this into some kind of animal, I'm going to have to figure the stresses of it too. Now what I want to do is maybe elongate this beginning of a sphere. I don't want to put stresses in it by working it down there on the marver. I use a little gravity intensification. Now there's nobody behind me and I can just swing and stretch that. You got to know how hot it is because you can swing that all the way across the room. But I'll shape a lot of tubing and rod that way. And you have to acquire the feel and start out gentle. And I guess you're going to have to fail to figure out how to do it right. So do it in a safe place to do that. This isn't the place. It's got wood counters back there, and for some reason things tend to always go where they're not supposed to. Well, that's when you grab your first fireman and take it for a walk. Yep. So here I'm going to make a leg, and it's just going to be about like that. I put down a gob of hot glass, pulled it one way, and then pulled it another. I'm going to try to fire cut it off down here. So don't be afraid to adjust your flame. If you got a big flame, sometimes you're just going to ruin your piece. Take the time to do that. Now what I've got going on here is thick and thin. And if I don't keep the thin kind of hot, it's going to shrink. And then when the thicker part goes to cool and it shrink, it's going to pull against that thinner part. The stresses are going to build and build and build, and then all of a sudden you're going to see this crack. Not that this won't crack anyhow, but squash down. Now, to make two things the same, that's really tough. I never got that down yet. But I believe in kind of the ergonomic approach. I was once with Sally Presh and a few other people at a scientific glassblowing convention in New Orleans. And at lunchtime we went downtown to an urban art glass studio that taught kids how to do bead making. Oh, on Wednesdays we read books. Well, I don't want to be here. Well, we read these bead books, tell you how, what time, and anyhow, they taught street kids how to read pretty much because they made them fall in love, got addicted to glass. Yeah, I was really impressed by that place. Anyhow, she made this bead as a demo, and I was really impressed by it. She made like a wing and a foot and a hand and an ear and an eye. Everyone was perfect because she only made one, and there was no comparison, so it was perfect. Where when you got to make two hands, you might spend the rest of the night. It's like when I make dragon's eyes, I end up making 20 eyes and then go through them and find the ones that pair out, because don't try to make a pair of something. And I once had a guy see all the teeth on a bunch of deadheads, and he said, "Oh, that must be tedious." And I was in a situation where I just opened my case on a parking lot at a gas station just across the street from a Dead show, and I was being swamped, and so I said, "Yeah," but because he was just rushing me. Actually, that made me think about it more, and no, it was an exercise. I used to pretty much do something so many, I'd do 3 top hats right-handed, with my right hand being the art hand and my other hand being the follower, and then I'd do 3 of them where I'd draw the dots with my left hand. And I always worked at trying to be more ambidextrous. I'm left-handed, but as a kid, in the times I grew up in, you didn't get a pair of scissors for left-handed kids. Left-handed kid learned to use right-handed scissors. didn't know they made such things as left-handed. So again, making all the thinner parts keep a temperature. Sometimes that little chill blowing on something will give you the movement you want to make. It'd be a lot stress. If I would have continued to tap on that, I would have broke the leg off. So I used to do all kinds of critters, even a rhinoceros, yep. And what you have to watch for is, like, you can use that flame spray right heating that back foot. Well, tag my shakes. Good morning, coffee. Please don't be a Doberman. Trying to be a horse. So sometimes you either grab your tweezers wherever I set them. I'll learn where I got my tools pretty soon. Oh, there's my tweezers. Wanting to shape a little. Trying to match the arch. Now I'll go for the hemostats. These are called actually a towel clip, and or a towel holder, some kind of surgical device. And the move for make the tail is called a triple pull, even if you do it more than 3 times. You're going to pull down, and you're going to make this wing is also triple pull. Heat in, stretch under here, pull that down just a little more. When you make things that stand up, if it stands on 3 points, it's like the milk stool. It doesn't fall over as easy. anyhow, that's where I pretty much took everybody as a beginner thing, was because while you're sitting there mixing those colors, you got a box over there. We'll just keep this from cracking up the back side maybe. And there's 3 legs it stands on that way. Anyhow, little things like